Are you an entrepreneur or ready to become a boss? Welcome to Hawaii Boss, the business podcast made in Hawaii, where you will hear from island movers and shakers on who they are and their impact on our state. And now, step into the office of your host for Hawaii Boss, David Pettijohn.
Hey, everybody. Again, this is Hawaii Boss, David Pettijohn, and we're walking into the big boss's office today. Mr. Miguel Gonzalez, who is the president of Catalyst PR and marketing firm here, well established in Hawaii. And we're in this particular boss's office because we think he might have some answers to what, as we try to get out of this post-COVID situation, and we see how as we're trying to rebuild and be creative about how we move out of this. We're looking for these bosses, these special types of folks that have certain types of skills that will help us to maybe navigate out through this and share some of these ideas and some of these up and coming bosses and some ways that they can position themselves to help grow their own career as well. So we're excited to talk about work and what it means for us in Hawaii, and also working in Hawaii, the benefits and some of the challenges. So we're excited that you're here today to help us inform us. Because I'm guessing, tell me this, in a marketing firm, you must meet a lot of cool people. Tell me some of the cool that stands out in your mind, some of the cool people that you've met, or that some of the businesses that you interact with on a day-to-day basis.
Well, thank you for having me, David. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Sure.
I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to discuss this particular topic because I'm passionate about business.
Mm-hmm.
In my now 12 years of doing public relations, you're right. I have met a lot of interesting folks, a lot of folks who are either considered famous or admired. But honestly, I stayed with the business leaders that were considerate of others. I stayed with leadership skills that kept everybody in mind, that kept the community in mind. And those were the particular leaders that left the biggest impression on me. Those who thought about others, those who thought about their employees, their well-being,
right,
their future. Those are the ones that left a lasting impression with me because they were real leaders.
Right.
I've seen, there's all types of people around in different industries, but those were the ones that really made an impact because they were leading from the back. They were empowering their employees.
Mm-hmm.
They were, giving them confidence and having them reach new levels. And so that's the style of leadership that I like a lot, to help
Sure.
others.
Well, that's what we want to find out. There's all kinds of bosses out there. They've been placed in charge of things, but there's good bosses, and then there's ones that still have some opportunity for growth and improvement, as we say it, in a politically correct way. Maybe
Right.
you call them, hey, I got a bad boss, but some people, maybe they just don't know, they don't have the skills yet. So that, again, we're going to help everybody here, try to help everybody. So let's tell this work ethic that that you're looking for, that you see in leaders, and what draws you to that. Let's talk a little bit about your background and your work experience.
Sure.
What kind of work did you grow up with? Were your parents, both your family, all hardworking type of folks, or I assume everybody has to work growing up.
Right.
What kind of work were they involved in?
Definitely. So my parents were immigrants from Mexico.
Okay.
And they were very hardworking folks. To this day, they are. They were involved with jobs that anything to put food on the table. It's basically what we would describe it.
Uh-huh.
So my dad was an entrepreneur. He had a couple of rotisserie chicken businesses.
Sure. Huli, they got that over here too.
Huli. Yeah. So, but what I always learned from him, from my mom, from my grandmother, it was that no job is too small for somebody. It's a job is a job. It's a way to put food on the table for your family.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to also feel accomplished, to feel confident about yourself. So no matter what job you do, the approach that my family took was do it right.
Right.
Whatever it is that you do it right. So you can make sure that you are, expanding, you're growing with that, and then you can aspire to other jobs that perhaps you're looking. That's the other thing that my family always instilled in me, which was always imagine yourself in a better situation than you
Okay.
are.
Yeah,
So,
because it's possible. If you can
yeah,
imagine it, it can happen. If you imagine it, it can happen. And
exactly. Exactly.
but
It's the first step.
mhm, that's right. And so I mean, as you watched your parents and you know started to evaluate their lifestyle and the type of work that they did, and you started to try and find your place. How old were you when your parents came over, but you were born here, or?
No, so I was born. So I was born in Mexico. I was
Mhm.
young though. I was very young
Sure,
when I
sure.
first came here.
Uh-huh.
So in it, but going back to your first question, I became aware of work very, very early in my life. I mean, my parents, when we were cleaning the house, when
Uh-huh.
we were doing things, they expected everybody to be involved.
Right.
And it started developing. I didn't know it back then. I thought my
Mhm.
parents were just being mean, but back then they were starting already to develop that work ethic, to
Right.
understand that you got to be useful to people.
Sure.
And it's that same work ethic that I took when I left reporting. I was a newspaper reporter for 10 years.
Now
And
we're
when
going
I
to talk about that in a minute.
left,
So we're not going to get out of
definitely,
that. So all right.
definitely. And once I started putting together my idea, putting together my own public relations firm,
Mhm.
that work ethic came into mind. And to this day, when the pandemic started hitting, it's that work ethic again that came in and allowed me to look at what I'm doing for my clients and figure out better ways to help them.
Uh-huh.
Because in the situation of pandemics and this situation of budget shrinking and different things like that,
Mhm.
consultants can definitely feel that.
Right.
But I feel that consultants can also have something to do with it by increasing their efforts, by being more helpful to the client,
Sure.
taking on different roles that perhaps you haven't taken before, not being afraid to doing that.
Sure. And that's the thing with leaders or good bosses. I think they have to be able to, as resources shrink, they have to be able to still they still have to get the job done. So they
Right.
still have to be able to access these resources. And as those resources shrink, particularly in Hawaii, because there may be only a few sources for certain things to be able to get. And then as those things dwindle, as the economy fluctuates and things, then we have challenges trying to get those resources. And someone who has those kind of all tapped in seems like a valuable thing for folks in Hawaii or anyone who wants to do business that can pull all these sort of scarce resources and
Right.
together.
It makes sense. I mean, invention, necessity is the mother of invention.
Sure.
It's really being fast on your feet and figuring out things, putting on different hats. And my day-to-day job with the different clients that I have, I mean, I can go from talking healthcare to talking business to talking promotions. It just varies. And it's I like the fast pace of it. I like working with different individuals that have things to offer. I learn from each one of my clients. And my goal is to always leave the client in a much better situation than when I first came in. If I'm able to answer that, then I've done my job.
Uh-huh. So tell me about that then. If people still aren't maybe sure how PR works, or, I try you want to help your clients. And so give us an example of you helping a client in a situation and getting them the resources that they needed.
Sure. So, public relations can be a topic that it can be confusing to some folks. I mean,
Sure.
I've talked to many people, and some people just still think that it's mainly advertising on TV or it's mainly just talking to the media. It's actually all of them. It's combining everything. It's talking to the media, it's pitching a story, it's working with your client to develop that particular story, that it's appealing, that it's now, that it's also community oriented. So what I do is I come in with the knowledge that I have from my previous life as a reporter, and I advise clients on ways that they can gain publicity or good headlines by aligning themselves with a particular cause, by working with local people in the community. Even if they're doing a promotion, if they're trying to sell something, what I always try to do is I try to have that grassroots effort attached to any campaign that I have.
Sure.
Because then from there, we can help the community, we can work with the community. And as you know, David, the local community here in Hawaii, they are they observe who's helping and who's not. And they keep track of that. They keep that in mind. There are many mainland corporations that come in and that they're just looking to take and not give anything back to the land. And so that's frowned upon within our community. We want people to come and contribute and add.
Right. Right. I mean, sure, there are so many resources available in Hawaii. You know, beauty of the land, but also financially, as you know, it's positioned in a very good situation. It's tourism, but also it's a sort of a stepping point
Right.
off from to Asia and different things. It's a great location, but it doesn't just move like you know, it's not like a U.S. cog, another cog in the U.S. wheel here. It's just you got to come here and you have to abide by the sort of the flow and the needs of the community, because you can't just
Correct.
carve out yours of this beautiful, you know, bounteous land and then just take it back to wherever you're going. You have to.
Exactly right.
It's a sharing sort of engagement.
It really is. It's a symbiotic relationship. It's
Right.
what it is. And, you know, I mean, a sample of them, one of my clients, Kapilani Medical Center, I do public relations for the Children's Miracle Network program, which is their charity, their foundation
Sure.
that helps kids who otherwise cannot afford to pay for care.
Mm-hmm.
It takes care of those particular bills for those kids and for those families.
Okay.
So for me, what I'm able to do with programs like that is I'm able to show families who have gone through those programs and who have, thank God, benefited by those programs. Their kid is doing well. Maybe they were facing a life or death situation or a life-changing situation. And thanks to that particular care that they received, they are now have a chance at a normal life, if you will.
Right.
And it's getting that message out there, talking to the families, getting them trained so they can talk to the media, talking to the media so they can be interested in talking to the families, and then getting them all together so they can get that story out. And when the story comes out, people in the community come out and say, you know, I didn't know Kapilani was doing that. I didn't know 100% of my donation stays here in Hawaii.
Okay.
So those are things that...
So I can say you generally you're a communicator. I mean, overarching thing is that you maybe how would you define what you do in maybe a sentence?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I would say a communicator and a facilitator.
Facilitator, yeah, makes a lot of sense. To facilitate, you know, communication or whatever needs that are happening. So tell us, maybe I think we wanted to go back to this, how you kind of, you know, scrapped your way through, you know, 10 years as an LA reporter that must have, you know, helped to build in some of these resources. What are some of the, and I don't want nothing too, you know, we don't have to, it's a family show here, you know, but tell us how some of the things that you learned as far as work ethic as a you know, beat reporter. Tell us about what you did.
Sure. So, you know, I was a newspaper reporter and I was a beat reporter, a sports beats reporter. And one of my beats was basketball. So I was actually covering the LA Lakers in the early 2000s.
Okay.
You know, in that particular scenario, I was when I was a reporter before that, I covered a lot of concerts, a lot of business events. So to go into sports was a different learning activity, but at the same time, it was very fulfilling as well because, you know, you get to cover, at that time I was covering Shaq and Kobe during their heyday.
Uh-huh.
I got to see them during practice. I got to see the inner workings of a professional team, how all the work that takes behind that, the ethic that happened, the support of the staff. It's not just the players, it's a staff of 100 people who are working to make sure that has their meals, their itinerary, their plane is ready. So it's a lot of coming together, a lot of people working for one particular cause.
Right, and everybody just jumps on right away and just agrees with everything, and everything is just smooth as can be. I assume.
It really is.
Oh, well, no, you got to have some people that are maybe, you know, maybe give us an example. Maybe you run into a roadblock and you got some hard people, difficult people. Tell us how you deal with difficult people. You're a boss. How do you know, help people get through some of the whatever's going on in their heart, head, whatever?
Sure. So what I actually try to do is I try to just study the person first. If I see that there is somebody who's hard-headed, maybe difficult to work with, maybe somebody warned me about working with that particular person, I like to take it as a challenge. I believe that I can work with almost anyone. You know, I haven't really come up with many people that in my career, thankfully, that I said I will not work with that person. And I think ultimately it's a work ethic, right? We're all professionals. We're all working and making sure that our task, our mission gets accomplished. So we want to make sure that we're able to work across the aisle and do that. Now, there are some people just who will not work with folks or whose attitude prevents them from really giving their best.
Sure.
And ultimately, those people choose the path for themselves to either change or to stay the same way and alienate people or businesses or possible deals, different things like that. So I've
Yeah.
seen things like that. But I think what I stay with is the fact that I look at the psyche of business as well. I analyze a lot of the psyche. I analyze a lot of the body language as well.
Okay.
That allows me to strike a middle ground with somebody. You know, it could be anything from a comment as to, you know what, I really like the color of that shirt. That's a really good color. Is that new one that they're coming out with? It's just striking a point to make sure that you have a common ground with somebody so we can get some work done.
Right. That's some really great advice for anyone to be able to, you said in the beginning, study the person. It doesn't mean like, troll them out on Facebook and, find out all what's going on on, Facebook, but it's like when you're in their presence and find out what kind of things get them excited, what kind of things are,
Exactly.
it's important to know, to be able to step out of yourself. This is good boss advice, I think, to step out of yourself for a second and say, look at another person, find out what their needs are. And I think that's difficult for some people, but I think it's important to know how to do it.
I agree with you, David. And it's a situation where you can just have a very innocent conversation and learn a lot about that person. It doesn't have to be anything that's confrontational. You can just say, tell me about the place where you grew up. What's special about it? Instead of asking, where'd you come from? It's a more direct question than if I frame it in another way. So it's about framing. It's about asking. It's about making sure that people do not feel either offended or intimidated by how you're approaching them.
Sure, yeah, and that's a soft skill. I think they call it in human resources terms. That's a soft skill that we learn. So everybody can learn it. Just because you can't do it now doesn't mean that you can't learn it. So it's good that there's so you can do some good modeling. But sometimes, what if a guy makes you really upset? You're in a boss. Maybe you're talking to a boss, your coworker, and man, they're just being, as we say, obtuse, or they're being ignorant. And well, what's the best way when things are getting real flared? Have you? What do you do? I'm sure in LA, the sports casters and different things like that. I'm sure there's some flared emotions and things. Any good stories? You might, somebody got a little too hot. Not you, of course. You seem cool and collected, but if you can talk about other people, it's okay.
Yeah, definitely. I've had many run-ins with just different people, different attitudes, and you said it. LA is just capital of attitudes, capital of egos, and you'll definitely come across different people. When I was covering the LA Lakers, I came across this very well-known sports columnist who was very admired in LA, but it's just about one of the worst persons I met in terms of attitude, in terms of entitlement. And so we were at the press box one time. It was the NBA Finals, and I remember a couple of fans sneaked into the press box, and he was so upset. He wanted to just take things he wanted to physically restrain people and have them not come up to the press box. And he
lost control
for help. And I was like, I'm not going to touch those people. I don't know who they are. I don't know if they have a permit to be here.
Right.
But you have to be so adamant about doing that. Finally, long story short, security came. The guys were escorted out, but he was so upset for the entire game. I could see his face red and his face popping because he was just so upset. And I told myself, never get to that point where he might be an admired columnist, he may be well respected, but the person that he is, it doesn't account. There's two people.
Okay, so imagine you try to pull that over here in Hawaii. What do you think would happen?
I think that would be very frowned upon. I think LA.
You might get lickings.
Oh, completely. And that was a nice way of me saying that people will not like that. Because Hawaii does not put up with anything like that. I like Hawaii because Hawaii keeps you accountable. It keeps you grounded.
Right.
And I really like that. I like the fact of feeling and walking around the island, talking to people of all walks of life, and you're all the same by just the way you guys approach, by just using the word bra.
Right.
You're on the middle ground already. So it's things like that I.
I'm on the H1 today. I'm driving, and it feels like I know everybody. Like everybody's windows down. We're cruising. It's bad traffic. 4 lanes across. But everybody's like, hey, windows down, hands out, shotgun this, and we're heading down the freeway. Some people aren't so easy, but a little easier on a big island to go for a cruise. But Oahu is all right too. It's nice.
It's a big change of life for me because I was, raised in Southern California with 20 million people in that immediate area of LA basin. There's just
Right.
people are on top of each other. So people are going to get testy with each other, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess that's maybe was that the impetus
Here,
for you to get out of there and come over to Hawaii? What brought you here?
so I came to Hawaii in 2009, my first time. And my brother was actually living here. He was working for HMSA.
Okay.
And so we came by to visit my nephews, my nieces.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, my wife and I, we were definitely thinking about having a child, but we weren't ready yet.
Mm-hmm.
And once we visited Hawaii, it just changed I remember that first visit. And I remember driving. I stayed at Turtle Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the drive from the airport to Turtle Bay. And I was just in awe I was just driving in awe, looking at everything, how green, the greenery, beautiful, right?
Right.
It felt like another country, only that my money works here, right?
Right.
It speaks the same language.
Uh-huh.
And so it was definitely one of those love at first sight situations.
Right. Uh-huh.
Back a couple more times. And I think after the third time, we went back to LA and we were missing Hawaii. And one night, my wife and I were saying, what if we just try it? What if we just move over there?
Right.
We own a house here. We can rent it out. We can go over there, try it out, see what happens. If it doesn't work, we always have something to fall back on.
Now, a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that with Hawaii. They give it a test out, but then you stayed. So what's the difference? What flipped the switch after? When did you decide this is it for sure?
So originally we were only going to do a year, right? It was a year trial. I mean, I don't even think we discussed it after a year. We knew we were going to stay here.
Yeah. Dump off the container and then load up the container 1 year later and go. But no, this one is no, it's different.
Well, and my son at that time, we got pregnant with Sebastian about a year after that. So
okay,
situation where we knew he was going to be born here, and we couldn't imagine a better place to raise him.
Well, then what are those things about Hawaii then that says I want to raise my family here and I want to make this my permanent career location?
There are so many. There are just so many. Just like the culture itself. I mean, the whole part of everybody calling each other auntie and uncle and sister and brother. Right. I love that. I love the warmness of it. I'm of Mexican descent, and Mexican people are very warm. They want you to come over and eat. They want to feed you, even if you're not hungry. So Hawaiian people, local people are the same way.
Sure.
Where one eats, five can eat. It's that same mentality. I appreciate that because it keeps me grounded to the things that matter. And it keeps me disconnected from the things that just really are a waste of time, essentially.
Right. Yeah, there is so much culture here. There's some Chinese influence, and Korean, and Japanese, and Filipino large influence. Just all these Pacific Islanders from all over, just mixing and melting in here, and it's makes for a cool type of environment always.
It really does. I mean, from just the things of going to the beach. After the beach surf session, you go and grab a musubi. You grab a pokeball. All those things that I would love, that I would miss if I weren't here.
Right. Yeah, or if I'm trudging through 2 feet of snow in Denver, or up in all these great places. I just can't imagine myself. Same thing. Going back. Where do I go back to? I'm missing road trips. There's a couple of things. I just drive around the island a couple of times, or just get stuck in traffic. It's not quite the same. Kauai, I hear people get a little bit more anxious about being on Kauai because it's not as much places to go. But Big Island, Oahu, some different places. So just fly a little bit. You can go Southwest. You can go Hawaiian. You can go Mokulele. I think it's still flying around here somewhere.
I think they are. I just came back from Kauai last week, and Hawaii is so beautiful. I can see how people get a little bit frustrated because it's so far from each other, right?
Right.
But each island itself has their own vibe, their own very special vibe. Right. And you go to another island, you see the way locals do things, and you're like, oh, okay, we do it a little bit different over there, but it's almost the same. It's really cool discovering each island and comparing it to your home island, if you will, and go from there. It's super.
Yeah. So it's so much community, and everybody knows everybody, families and things, and what high school you in, grad, and all that stuff. Everybody knows everybody. And some people leave and they go. I've talked to lots of folks that come and they go work on the mainland and they come back and they're so grateful for what they left. what they have here in Hawaii because they see the mainland. But some people choose the mainland because it has some different resources for their families that Hawaii doesn't have. So it's kind of it's different for everybody.
It really is. And I mean, I see people, there's people all the time that are leaving the island. There's people that are coming to the island, and it has to be the right situation for their families. I will never fault anybody for choosing the right situation for whatever's going to work for them to realize their goals, their dreams.
Sure.
And sometimes they have to go on the island. For me, my dream is here. It's growing a responsible business, a good corporate business that hopefully helps other businesses and that brings people together. Because if I'm doing that, I think I'm doing my job.
Yeah, and we need more like-minded folks like you out there who are trying to be creative and trying to solve, these, find out how we get out of this. Because again, we're heavily dependent on tourism. Not sure if that's the best mechanism as we go out of this. And so we're looking at some different options. I'm not saying you have all the answers, but we're going to try and find that through this as we discuss. But what are your thoughts right now? I mean, tourism is the main thing. What's your thoughts and our advice to kind of as we close this out and close this these questions out, and then I've got a couple other questions. We're going to put you on the hot seat. We're going to kind of relax a little bit. It's Pauhana time, kind of chill a little bit, maybe ask some funner questions. But tell us a little bit about, that part as far as, advice, trying to do business over here and what that would look like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, business here in Hawaii, obviously we have the pandemic that's happening here, and, we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel with this particular pandemic. And you're right, tourism itself, as you know, it's the 800-pound gorilla in this island, in all of our islands. And, there was already talk about possibly creating new industry, creating new jobs that are maybe not so related to hospitality, to tourism,
sure,
to hopefully do away with something like that and not have the entire island be paralyzed for a year, or the great majority of the island, because those jobs, whether you want it or not, there is a connection with the job that we do in hospitality, because it's all trickles down. There is that influx of dollars as well coming in, and we all feel the pinch when they're not there. So that being said, I believe people are a bit more excited now. We're starting to see the numbers come back. I think it's important that that in case something like this happens, and it's a matter of time before another pandemic happens. There's no way ifs or buts about it. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we definitely develop alternatives so that keep people working.
Sure.
I think tourism is a great. I do business with hospitality giants and industries, and I'm very grateful for that. But I also think it's important for people to keep food on their table, to develop other ways to make sure that we have that. Agriculture is something that I think we need to keep to really take a look at. So all of our islands can be more self-sufficient.
Right.
And in case of a natural disaster, we're not cut off from food, which is super important. So things like that are going to be important, but they're going to take some leadership, because it's easy to say it when it's happening, but after the problem is gone, it's how are we going to do this, and how we're still going to get together? Are we all still as motivated as we were at the beginning of the pandemic? So
creating a self-sufficient Hawaii is a new concept, not just that we're Hawaii is standing on its own. What would that look like without depending upon these other foreign dollars to come in and kind of make this afloat? Is that possible? That's a big question. Is it even possible? I think we're willing to look, right? And that's why we're doing this. And so really excited.
I'm encouraged by that, because I've been talking to leaders around the community, and they are exploring that particular part. I'm excited with our new mayor, Rick Blangiardi, who has great vision on things, and who I know him personally when he was at Hawaii News Now. I feel that the way he's running the city, the way he's looking at everything, and he's compassionate of people. He's been working with different industries to figure out how he can help them. So I appreciate that. I think passion right now is super important to put ourselves in the position of others for a minute.
Yeah, and if we can cut through some of this red tape, which is historically large in Hawaii, I think. But again, I think if we're all unified in purpose, if we can clarify purpose, I think then that might help us all get unified around some things. But okay, Miguel, as promised, we want to do a little bit of a pauhana, kind of we're chilling out at the end of the day. We want to talk real talk a little bit. And so
can I unbutton my top? Can I unbutton this?
Sorry, just unbutton a little bit. Take it easy a little bit. I don't know if you drink. You can go ahead and pound. Go ahead and pound one right now. Here, no, I don't drink. Okay, he's got something to kind of relax it a little bit. Nice. Okay, so a couple questions. Sometimes things go sideways. You're a boss. You ever had to fire anybody?
Sure. I mean, it's not pleasant. It's not. It's not something that fills me with joy.
Well, did you ever do it in anger? Did you do it like, you're fired? That kind of one. You ever done one of those numbers?
I've been close to doing that, but I have to give credit to my wife, who's always been the more person who's more of a calm down, relax, look at the situation, and then from there figure it out. So she helped me a lot with that. But there's been a couple of times that I was ready to just start with the F word, right?
Okay.
You are, but it was, yeah. So I think honestly, looking at that, it's, nobody, I don't enjoy firing people. I don't like it when somebody loses their job. It's different though, when somebody has been given many opportunities to correct things and they're still not getting it. And sometimes you're doing people a favor by doing that, because you're really bringing the situation to their utmost attention, right? When you're getting fired, you're saying, yeah.
Has anyone ever done you that favor?
My younger years. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I got fired from a couple of jobs. One, I'm pretty sure I deserved it because I was young and silly.
Just not showing up, or just, or you're playing around at work, or what were you doing?
Yeah, playing around at work with the rest. I worked with it was a youth camp, and we were all youth counselors. So nobody was doing their job.
Right.
And so, we all got fired. But then after that, I think also in college, I think there was like a staff department cut, and I was one of the ones that was spendable because I was a student anyway.
Sure. Yeah, I remember.
But after that, I've been actually pretty lucky.
Well, good. Well, lucky. I don't call it luck. I mean, sometimes you have lucky that you don't get fired. I think sometimes we have something to do with it. Sometimes it's a bad boss, but sometimes. Some people take legal action after you get fired. So everybody gets so excited, all this employment stuff. So I know it's hard stuff, but hopefully we can give some tools out there. And by you coming on and kind of having some fun with us today, we really appreciate it, Miguel. And hopefully we can talk a little bit more about all the great, folks that you represent, your clients, and some of the businesses they do, and have them on the show. And also, again, just excited that you're willing to share and kind of chill with us as we head into the evening here, and again, thanks so much. And for everybody, please make sure you tune into Hawaii Boss Podcast. It's all over the place on our social media, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. So again, Miguel, hope you come back soon, and
thank you, David.
We'll talk some more, and we'll hear from a real Hawaii boss.
Thank you so much, David. I've enjoyed myself being in this show, and I think you're doing a great thing to talk to more people in the business community. We really all need to come together. Yeah. And I think this is going to be a great tool to do in that. So thanks for all the work you're doing out there.
Yeah, for sure. Aloha, and we'll talk soon.
Make sure to subscribe to Hawaii Boss and follow us on social media at Hawaii Boss Podcast at the links in the description. We'll see you soon in the boss's office.